It all started when we were kids. Trish moved in across the street, and a week later, the house next to us got sold to a family who had just arrived in the country. That was how I met my best friend. Loki and I did everything together. He was my most trusted friend. Our families became close. The Radcliffes would often take us on holidays with them, but sometimes it felt like it was out of pity and a need to show off. Loki's parents were well off, and we were not. It became uncomfortable sometimes because people would refer to Loki and I like brothers, and they compared us too. He was always the golden child, attractive, rich, and great at sports. Meanwhile, I was always referred to as the other one. Despite that, we all still had a grand time. Loki and I always wondered what the family across the street was like. They never associated with us. Not with my family, that is. The Soutons always stopped for a chat with Loki's parents, but whenever they saw me or my parents outside, they'd turn up their noses at us and quickly make their way into their manor. I met my wife-to-be on my first day of college. I was running 15 minutes late for my class when I saw this beautiful girl running from the other direction towards me. I was so transfixed by her that I swerved into her instead of away from her. We collided, her notebooks flying into the air and my syllabus papers scattered in the wind. But, as luck would have it, Trish and I were headed to the same classroom, and neither of us were going in the right direction. After that, Trish and I were inseparable. My best friend caught up with us during lunchtime. "Oh, who's this?" Loki, this is Trish, the girl who's gonna take your place. Trish, this is Loki, my currently ex-best friend. Trish, Loki, and I hung out every day. Before the holiday break, Trish invited everyone to her family's holiday villa at a ski resort. The whole class went. It was almost like a school trip, except there weren't any teachers around to tell us what not to do. Trish and I had our first kiss on the cable car we took up the mountain. I was lucky there was only room for two. We went skiing, went to the hot springs, built snowmen, and had epic snowball fights. I met Trish's family there. Her mom and dad were neurosurgeons who wanted only the best for their daughter. Thus, they immediately disapproved of me. I could be wrong, but it's probably because I'm not from the same kind of family as theirs. Grew up in the suburbs, had a set of parents with good jobs, and an SAT score to brag about. I wasn't like Loki. To them, I was just another low-achieving, low-income delinquent who was a bad influence on their daughter. "So, you're this Hayden we keep hearing about. Tell me, Hayden, where do you live?" I actually live right across from you." "Jeez, Mom, he's lived across from us for ages and you didn't even know? I'm so sorry, Hayden. My parents are awful neighbors."
Don't interrupt your mother, Julia. Trish tells us your father works in the energy sector. Must be exciting."
"I'd always gotten the impression that your father was some sort of laborer. He always appears filthy." I looked at Trish, who was determined to avoid my gaze. Why did she lie about my parents? Was she ashamed? My dad's a coal miner, sir." "How ghastly!"
"Oh, dear. How can you even afford to go to that school?"
They said all of that in front of everyone. My classmates started whispering about me. "Mom! Dad! Stop it!" The only one in Trish's family who even came to my defense was her sister, Julia. Julia was even more beautiful than her older sister, if that was even possible. But for some reason, her parents didn't seem to care as much about Julia as they did for Trish. When Julia spent the entire night hanging out with us, their parents didn't bat an eye. When we went back, I knew something was off. Trish had a hard time finding excuses to hang out with me. And yet, all of a sudden, my best friend was getting invites for dinner at Trish's house. Hey, don't worry, bro. You know I'm the ultimate wingman. I'll smooth it over with the parentals, make sure they see you in a better light, huh? I trusted my friend. I knew he had my best interests at heart. As the months passed by, I saw Trish even less. But in her absence, I had her sister. Julia would often come to comfort me. She would share stories about her sister. One night, we hung out at an arcade Trish and I used to always meet up at, and under the light, Julia almost looked like her sister, only more radiant. I couldn't help but look deep into her eyes. And then she leaned in. And I leaned in. It was like there was some force that brought us together. And my lips met hers. As soon as we did, Julia sprang up from her seat. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Bye. Julia ran out of there in tears. I could tell there was something she wasn't telling me. For a while, we didn't speak, but she eventually texted me again. She assured me that her sister would soon find a way for us to be together again. But even though Julia said it with a smile, I could feel that she was lying to cheer me up. 3 more years passed, and I must have only been able to see my girlfriend a handful of times since then. We texted almost every night, but it became harder and harder for us to reconnect. Out of nowhere, Trish phoned me in a panic. She said she needed money for an emergency. But when I asked her why, she avoided answering. Do you even love me? Just help me! So, I did. I got a part-time job and dipped it into my savings. And I sent her money every time she needed it. I asked Julia what was happening and why her sister needed money when they could afford to probably buy another 3 mansions. But Julia had no idea what I was talking about. What do you mean you've been sending her money? She's fine, I think. I mean, just yesterday she went to a gallery opening with Loki. It only left me even more confused. When Trish talked to me, it always sounded like she was in trouble. Did her parents cut her off? Loki, being the awesome friend that he was, asked Julia to the leaving party before graduation. I've planned it all out. I'll tell her parents that I'm her date, and they're sure to let her out of the house. And then, when we meet up, you get your girl, and I get to go on the hunt for mine. Deal? Loki didn't seem bothered by Trish's parents. In fact, he seemed to be enjoying getting to spend time alone with my girlfriend. He started rocking a new Bugatti to school, and every time, he and Trish would step out of it without even so much as looking at me. Loki and Trish became a bit of a power couple, while I was cast into the shadows. But Loki was my most trusted ally, and I figured he was just putting on an act to win over Trish's parents. All I could do was look forward to the leaving party. I was so excited. I worked 3 shifts back-to-back at my part-time job just so I could rent a fancy suit. I borrowed money from my mom so I could rent a nice car for the evening. And with every cent of my savings since I was 5 years old, I bought an engagement ring.